About 10 years ago, when I was 15, my Aunt Jo, best friend Lynn, and I decided on a whim to have a sleepover. We had gathered in my nan's house, watching films, eating pizza, and snacks. It got to around 11 p.m., so we decided to stay over instead of going home. We went to bed around midnight and decided to all stay in Joe's double bed, top and tail. We didn't go to sleep straight away, of course. We were gossiping and messing around, as teenage girls do. It got to around 1 a.m. and we tried to sleep. So we turned out the lights, got into bed. We still didn't sleep right away. We were making jokes and laughing in the dark, while fighting over the quilt. Joe's room is on the first floor, and it's laid out in this way. Walk in the door, the bed and window are straight ahead of you, with the top end of the bed against the wall with the window on it. I was sleeping that end, so my head was at the wall end, while Joe and Lane slept the other way around, with a view of the window. I was slowly beginning to drift off to sleep, but kept hearing this noise that sounded a bit like something scraping the wall outside. I tried to ignore it, but it kept me awake, so I lay in the dark with my eyes open and waited for exhaustion to take over. All of a sudden, Joe screamed, jumped out of the bed, and said, "Get away from the window." Lane then screamed, and I looked at the window to see what was happening and saw the silhouette of a person with their arms raised. We ran downstairs screaming for my nap. We rushed out from the living room to see what all the noise was. Joe was crying at this point, while Lane and I were just in shock, and we each tried to explain what had just happened. Once we finally got it out, my nan called the police and went upstairs with a bat to see if the person was still there. They weren't. The police turned up and took our statements, checked the area, and came up with nothing, but gave us another number to call should anything suspicious happen or the guy returns. We decided to sleep downstairs instead of going back up to Joe's room. We were panicked and frightened, but Joe was still in a state. Lane and I tried to calm her down and comfort her by saying he was gone, and we will call the police if he comes back. But Joe looked at us both in the eyes and told us something that makes my skin crawl when I think about it now. See, Joe lives in the big Victorian-style house in a quiet area, and while there is a roof behind her window, she always locks the window before sleeping, and the lock is easily visible. This person, this guy, climbed up the roof and tried to open Joe's window. The guy had his arms raised though, which confused me until Joe told me that her window can open both ways, and she often opened it from the top instead of the bottom. The guy had been watching the house for at least a day and had decided to strike that night. Luckily, we had been having the sleepover and saw him. Had Joe been alone that night, she would have been lying on the bed normally and wouldn't have seen the silhouette. I dare not think what would have happened to her if we didn't have the sleepover. I was super young when this happened, about 7 or 8, but I remember it so vividly. So I was a pretty naive child. My grandparents did warn me about stranger danger, but they mostly focused on how bad men were. So when an old lady started talking to me, I didn't think much of it. I was happy someone older was talking to me. She lived across the street from me, so I saw her every day when I went outside. She was super nice, gave me sweets and little toys whenever she saw me. The first red flag I saw was that she would sneak into my backyard late at night to tend to my garden. At that time, I didn't see it as a problem though, because she planted cherry tomatoes and they were my favorite. Something I recently realized though was the fact that the only way to get to the backyard without needing a key was the side of the house that had my window. The second red flag was the first time I went into her house. And this time, I took it as a red flag because to this day, I still don't drink milk. So I went in and she gave me brownies. Then she handed me a glass of milk. I told her I'm fine, thank you, because I already had a lot of milk to drink at my house. Her response was to make me drink the whole cup, full adult cup, or I wasn't allowed to leave. I finished it while crying. I left in a hurry and didn't see her again for a couple of weeks. Eventually, I did get over it though, and went back to apologize. We hung out for the whole day, and when it got late, she asked me something which sadly I got excited about. She asked me to sleep over. I was excited because I was never allowed to sleep over at a friend's house, and my logic was that since she's older and mature, then I would be allowed. I ran to ask my grandparents, and they were pissed off. She followed me home, and when they said no, I ran into my room in tears. I heard my grandpa yelling at her through my window, and when I looked, I made eye contact with her. I will never forget the disappointed look on her face when she said, "Why did you tell them?" To the old lady across the street, my younger self would have loved to meet you again, but I've grown up, and I don't want to ever meet you again. Hey guys, thank you so much for listening and hope you enjoyed the stories. If so, please subscribe to our channel. It'd be an amazing support to help us share more spooky videos in the future. Also, if you have any scary experience you like to share, please send us your story on the email in the description below. So until then, have a wicked day.